This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Please pardon my voice. I was quite sick last week and it's not yet completely back, but I have so much to share with you. I wanted to say that for me, every single episode of this podcast feels like it's Christmas. I'm so excited about each guest and each mom and each life story and all the incredible wisdom and lessons shared. And one of the most important things I've learned from this podcast is something that we learned from Gloria Steinem, which is that we can learn something from everyone. But every now and then, there is an interview that just blows my mind. Psychologist and grief expert Adina Belloli lost her mom when she was only 6 months old. But what's incredible is that this did not stop her from learning the most beautiful and valuable lessons from her mom about impermanence in life and about the power of the whole spectrum of emotions, about loving fiercely and showing it, and many, many other beautiful lessons Adina talks about. But for me, there was a different lesson here that we did not discuss in the interview and that I thought about afterwards. Like Adina, my mom was also a motherless mother. Her mom passed away when my mom was 12. And I grew up with a very strong presence of this grandmother that was not present. And a very strong presence of this tragedy and loss, to the extent that I kind of took it for granted. And I didn't bother knowing more about it or asking more about it because I had a feeling I already knew enough. But when my mother passed away, and especially after I started dealing with this topic of mothers and their lessons, I realized that there is so much I did not know, and so much I wish I knew, and so much I wish I asked if my heart was more open in this situation and not stubbornly closed and self-indulgent. Like, for instance, I don't know, I wish I asked her how long her mom has been sick and how did she deal with that, and how she dealt with her mom going to Sweden for treatment and leaving the 2 daughters behind, and the moment she found out about her passing away and how she dealt with this and how did she accept it and the grief process and who supported her in this. What did that look like? So many hugely important questions to ask. So much inspiring information that is lost. So my point is, please don't take things you know for granted. Talk to your moms while they are still here. Ponder of important topics in their lives, because in some way they shape you as well, and you can learn from them as well. Topics you think you know very well. Think about them more deeply. Take a step back and think about them more. And sit down with her and have a conversation. Ask questions. Find out how she felt, how she dealt with it. What did it really mean? Because, like with me, one day it might be too late. But now, please listen to this incredible conversation with Adina and let her sparkling energy and her mom's beautiful, inspiring lessons and life story inspire you. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Tider. My guest today is Adina Belloli. Adina is a grief specialist and a psychotherapist with multiple degrees in psychology, psychotherapy, and international healthcare, and public policy and economics. 11 years ago, Adina founded the international charity Invisible, through which she's been empowering disadvantaged children and women worldwide. Before that, she has worked with WHO and other NGOs, always supporting women and children. And her award-winning work has been featured on BBC, CNN, and more. But Adina is also a Reiki master and youth mindfulness teacher with over 15 years of meditation, mindfulness, and yoga practice. She's also co-host of the Motherhood Beyond Books podcast and a co-founder of the Motherless Mothers, an online community and platform. She's originally from the US, currently living in the UK, and a mom of two. And one of the two just called in sick from school. So Adina and I just chatted about how unpredictable the life of a mother is.
Yes.
But hey, we got together and we are recording. Hello, Adina. Thank you so much for being here and not canceling on me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure to be
hope
here.
She's
Thank
fine.
you. Thank you. Yeah, she is feeling a bit better, but I told her just stay home and relax. So
I'm very excited to have you here. I don't even know where to start. Let me start with all this experience and all this different education you did in psychology and psychotherapy and international healthcare and economics. How?
I know it's a wide range of stuff. By profession, so I'm a child and adolescent psychotherapist, and I have a special interest in mother loss, grief, trauma, motherhood. This work is really personal to me. Grief and loss have been part of my life really from the beginning. I lost my mother when I was 6 months old and she was 23. She was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. And, really that tragedy changed the entire trajectory of my life. And it's impacted everything who I became, like my identity, my mothering, I even honestly think it's impacted my career choice and, wanting to learn about psychology and all of these things. So it's been, quite a significant thing that happened. And so in addition to my work as a psychotherapist, I, as you said, founded this children's charity called Invisible. And I've been running that for 11 years. So we have provided 1.7 million free meals to malnourished children in an area of Manila called Quezon City in the Philippines. It's a grassroots organization, so it's entirely run by volunteers, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and community members. It's like a big family. It's really beautiful.
Why the Philippines? How did it start?
It's interesting because actually, so as a motherless mother, I don't have support here. So I had a nanny that helped me when my children were really small. She's from the Philippines. And she left her children behind to come and be a nanny abroad, as many of them do, to make a huge sacrifice to change, future generations. Like, this is how you really make a huge impact. Yeah. And I was so moved and touched by it. And she's like a member of our family. She hasn't worked for us for ages because my kids are older, but, she still comes by and she's wonderful. But I, at the time, was doing the research for the World Health Organization, and I really wanted to do something of my own. I wanted to give 100% of any funds straight to the project and know that it was, every ounce of that money was being used properly. And so I was making a list of all the different countries that, maybe I'd do a program here or there. And she said, why not the Philippines? Have you ever been? And I was like, you know what? Why not? Actually, it would be a nice way to give back to her and her community and, circle back, because she was so loving and wonderful and supportive for me and my family. And so I booked a trip there. I'd never been before. I went there. I met with so many different NGOs and organizations. And it was the last day that I met this food program that was being developed by Ateneo University, which is a private university there in Manila. And mothers were telling me stories of how, they had to feed their kids on certain days of the week because, they just didn't have the means to feed their children. And that broke my heart. And especially because, the conversion of the pound or the euro or the dollar into Filipino pesos is enormous. So for, 10p, I can feed a child. It's literally pennies. Yeah. And I just felt like that's it. And I also really just like the fact that the food is the way to get the children to school. So it encourages school attendance, and we provide healthy meals. We work with local farmers, so it's all fresh produce. And, it's really about like bridging food security and education, because many of these children, they don't see the point of going to school because they don't, see a future. And so if we get them to school, we explain, we support them through their whole entire journey. So we've actually followed children all the way up into the high school as well, which is just around the corner. And I have some that are going to be applying to uni soon. So it's really about long-term difference. Yeah.
So the food is supplied through the schools. So this gets them to go to school.
We turned a classroom into a kitchen. So yeah, that's how we do it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations. That's really inspiring.
Yeah, I do love that work. So I have that. And then I also, as you said, I have the Motherless Mothers. So that's an online community and a platform that I started with my partner, Louise, who's also a motherless mother. It's relatively new. We've only started it about 6 months ago, but we've already in a short time made huge changes, and we have ambitious plans for 2025 and beyond. We are the only, I don't know if I've told you, the only online community that's dedicated just to motherless mothers. So you can be motherless through death, through circumstance, through choice. And, we offer resources, support groups, advocacy, and it's really just a space to connect. And I feel like my whole life, has brought me here. This feels like my life's purpose. I'm deeply passionate about this work. And I'm actually, I think I told you before, writing a book on this topic. And I care a lot about the research and advocacy. And I think society is so grief illiterate, and it makes especially women and motherhood as well is so misunderstood. And I just feel like this intersection of motherhood and mother loss is just completely off the grid. And so I really want to shine a light on that.
That is very close to my heart, because my beloved mama was also a motherless mom. Her mom passed away when she was 12 years old. And that loss has always been present. I wanted to say that grandmother who wasn't there has always been present.
Of course.
She was very, very present in both of our lives. And it's very interesting, and it was fascinating for me that my mom, who has not been mothered long that because her mom was very ill for quite a few years before she passed away, that she turned out to be such an amazing mom. It's that we just have it inside of us. We don't need to necessarily learn it from somebody. So this motherless mother has been very present in my life. How, now that you've been working with other motherless mothers, is there something that's specific about them?
Well, I think that there's this duality as a motherless mother where you are constantly holding both the love and the loss. So it's something that if you have a mother, even if, you don't have the most amazing relationship, but you have a mother that you are not operating from this space. It's like a void. Women just talk about something's missing, a void. There's an emptiness. It's almost like a place of lack. So that gives a sense of insecurity as well. So you're constantly trying to stay in your adult self, not being triggered into the little child in us that always wants to be mothered, which is always there. Even, on our deathbed, we'll always want that yearning for a mother there, right? It's innate in us. We're wired for that. Our mother equals our survival. So without that, it is just, we're constantly triggered as a motherless mother. So we are acutely aware of, what we don't have, what we're missing out on, what our children are missing out on in any given moment. And it kind of blindsides you. Obviously there are the milestones. So when you reach the age that your mother was, say if she passed, or if your child is the age that you were, all of these things, which are the obvious ones. But then there are all of the little ones that you just don't even think about that are there, or the medical professionals that have no idea that that's even something that could cross their minds. They ask you, ask your mother, she'll know. Or, they assume you take the prenatal classes, and it's just, no one has that capacity to even have that thought in their mind that this woman might be motherless, right? So that's something that I think a lot of motherless mothers just feel they can't talk about. There's no one to talk to about it. Yeah.
How did you grow up? So who raised you?
So I mean, my story is quite choppy. My mother died when I was 6 months old. My father tried the best that he could, with the capacity that he could at the time. Everyone was grieving. And so he couldn't look after me properly. He gave me to my aunt in England, and I lived with her for a few years. At that point, I had been diagnosed with failure to thrive. So I was grieving as an infant, and that's what it looked like for me. So she saved my life, really, because she brought me back to health and gave me that love and nurturance that I so desperately needed.
Was that his sister or your mom's sister?
So it was my dad's brother and his wife.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom's family were completely shattered. So my mom in that car accident was also with her little sister, who was 12 at the time. And she was in the hospital for 2 years. Like, it was bad. She almost died. And so everyone kind of rallied around her to try to save her. And I was just kind of there, as an infant. I can't even imagine, when these things happen. So I very luckily was saved by my Aunt Margaret, who looked after me, brought me back to health. And then my dad, meanwhile, went through his grief process and then got me back when I was around 3. And then he raised me. And then he remarried when I was around 11, 12. So I had a stepmother. But yeah.
Did it work out with the stepmother, or was it not challenging?
It's an interesting question. And I think as a therapist too, I see it from so many different sides. She wasn't unkind, but I can see from her side now, I can see all the different angles of it and how hard it would be. And the different dynamics coming at play. So I get it, but it just, at the time, as the 12-year-old me, I was so excited to have this mom because it was something I always wanted, but it just never worked. It just never clicked. And, it just, for whatever reason, didn't happen. But around my teenage years, my mom's sisters started to come into my life again. And so that, I think, was a nice sort of way to still have that female figure person that, that I could, and also just fill in all the gaps about who my mom was and feel connected to her. And
That's beautiful. Yeah. Tell us about your mom. Tell us about Marilyn.
Oh, I love that question because growing up, I wasn't really able to talk about her. It's just, I think I was so worried I would upset people because it would make them feel sad. And I was just desperate to know everything about her. As I said, it wasn't until I was around 12 that I started to really get to know her through family and friends and, people that she knew. And it is wild to think that everything I know about my mother is through other people. It's just so surreal to think about. But so her name is Marilyn. She was born in 1956 in Louisiana in America. She came from a very large mixed race family, so 6 siblings. And they say, she was beautiful, she was elegant, but it was her kindness that everyone remembered. So she was often described as this beacon of light. She was super spiritual, devout, Roman Catholic. She was very courageous and brave and left an impression on those who knew her. And I'll give you an example because I know those are big words to throw out there, but this is to give you an idea of how she was and who she was. So she met my father, who was an international student from Iran, while they were at university. And not long after, they fell in love, they got engaged. But when his student visa expired, he had to return to Iran. And this was during the turbulent 1970s Iranian Revolution. So my mother was absolutely determined to reunite with him. So she wrote to President Jimmy Carter, and then she realized that wasn't going to get anywhere. Oh, wow. So she's a random woman writing to the president. Then she sought help from, her great uncle, Curtis Graves. So he was at the time a notable figure in the civil rights movement. He worked actually with Martin Luther King Jr. And he helped her. So she actually was managed to secure this visa to go to Iran, a place she'd never been. She'd never even left Texas, let alone the United States. And this was during the, Iranian Revolution. It was a huge deal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she went there, lands at the airport in Tehran, like rings up my, like, there's no cell phones or any of that then, like rings up my dad's family, like, I'm here. And they're like shocked, like, what is this American woman doing here? Like, yeah. So she ends up staying with extended family and living in hiding, having to cover up, obviously, and not speak. So no one would know this female American woman is there. And, you know, she had just absolute conviction and determination, and it paid off. Like after a month of relentless effort, she got my dad a visa and they returned to the US and they got married and soon after had me. But then, you know, obviously tragically, like 6 months later, she died. And it was like, you know, but that just shows you the character of the type of woman that she was.
This determination. She must have been so in love. Can you imagine how in love she was?
Yes.
I love that. You were created in this huge love.
Yes, I know.
Oh,
yeah.
And the determination and fearlessness.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed and inspired.
Yes, I know. And that's the thing is she inspires me. Yeah.
To just go for what
exactly.
Want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. We already learned so many lessons from this short story, but tell me about what you
I mean, I think so. As any motherless mother, you know, the impermanence of life is a big lesson. So losing her so young, I have grown up with that like profound awareness of life's fragility. And just, I think as humans, we kind of just assume we're going to live forever. Like it's this weird thing where we don't really think about, like, you know, that we have zero control over that when our time comes. And so because I grew up like, you know, aware that it could happen in an instant, you know, I feel like it's really helped me to sort of live with more intention and appreciation, especially with time. So yeah, I feel like really present. I feel gratitude. Every birthday, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here. It's another year. Like everything is very much about just appreciating the time that we have. And I find especially becoming a mother, like it went up even another notch. So my time is so valuable. Like I'm careful with who I spend it with, like what takes me away from my family, you know, all of those things really matter.
Are you teaching your daughters this? Because this rings so many bells, because this is one of the most important things my mother has been teaching me, exactly for the same reason. And it's funny, I was just, when I turned Zoom on, I said, Jesus, I look so terrible and old on this Zoom. I don't have a special light. But you see, my mom, for instance, always taught me that aging is a luxury, because her mom died.
It is. It's a gift. Yeah.
And she was like you. She was really appreciative of every moment in life. Are you teaching your daughters this?
I mean, I don't explicitly say it, but I think it's through modeling, right? So they see how I am, and how, you know, as I said, each birthday, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad to be here. Like in all of these things, I think it's living in a way that's the best way to teach them.
Yeah. But it's not, for me, it wasn't bad that my mom reminded me this, that, you know, grandma passed away at 32, and that every second is so precious that we get.
Well, they feel it and they know it because they see it. You know, there is no grandmother, and there is no, I think that's like an unconscious, yeah.
Thank you for that one. Do we have more?
Yes, of course. There's so many. Another one, I guess, is the depth of feeling. So because I had this extreme contrast of the enormous love and then this pain from the grief, I feel like she really taught me, you know, what home feels like, what love feels like. Love is, you know, expansion and joy. But then I also had, from like infancy, just this sensation of grief, rupture, loss, like, grief is like pre-language. It's very ancient. It's like a visceral pain. So just having that capacity to like feel the whole spectrum of emotions at such a young age, I think, well, it's made me a very like a highly sensitive feeling person, which is helpful in the work that I do, because I can really go there to the depth of, you know, all the human experiences. And also I feel like with having a daughter now and recreating that mother-daughter bond, like it's been just magical, yes, but also like really, again, reminding me of all of that sort of wide range of like the lack and the love, and like, you know, just these, it's like cyclical, because it goes together, the love and the loss, like
it fluctuates.
It does. Yeah.
Then we had Bravery.
We do. So Bravery, which we covered.
About.
Yeah, I think that one's obvious. But it gives me very like, I see her as like this goddess warrior. Like, I try to tap into that, like for being brave to take risks or go out of my comfort zone, because I'm a creature of habit. So like, this is where I'll be like, I need to bring that lesson in and do that. And then I said the last one was love fiercely, which you can see she did. And I try to embody that as well. So I make sure that I tell my children that I love them, my husband, my friends, like daily, multiple times a day. I leave notes. Like I just think you can't love anyone enough. You can't tell anyone that you love them enough. Like, and I think we take it for granted, like, oh, they know, but no, tell them, show them,
That is so important. I do the same as well. I every time he leaves house to go to school, I'm like, I love you.
Yeah, I know. I'm like rolling down the window when we drop them off, and I'm like shouting, love you. I'm sure they hate it, but I just want you to
But no, I promise I won't cry. That was the last thing my mom told me.
Oh.
We said to each other, and we always greeted each other with I love yous. We always made sure. And it's so beautiful. I had no idea that she's going to pass away. She was ill already, but we thought we had a few more months. And this is why I appreciate that so much and keep it up with my son. Because as you've learned and I've learned, you never know.
You never know. Exactly.
And if there are last words, I want these to be my last words.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's as you say, we tend to take it for granted. Also in our relationships with our husbands or our loved ones, we kind of, he knows it anyway, but it's very important to remind ourselves and them and our loved ones of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add to Marilyn's lessons or life or?
I mean, I feel like there's so many things that I wish that she could have shared and taught me. And, it's an endless list really, because I lost her so young. So, I've missed like not being shown and modeled like what it's like to be the mother. And so it's been being on the other end of it, you kind of feel like I'm learning as I go, which I'm sure we all are, all mothers are, but there is like a level of like insecurity, or the other extreme where I feel like I need to be this perfect mother because, I get to be a mother. She didn't get to have this. So it's like, I need to almost do it for the both of us. Right. And because I didn't know her really in like a human way, she has been portrayed and idealized as this perfect mother in my head. And so I obviously know that's not realistic, but it's there. And so I feel I have to be really careful and about the pressures and the expectations I put on myself because of that, because that's how I've internalized her as this goddess, like a wonderful, perfect mother,
I know, but listen, I lost my mom when I was 42 and I tend to do that as well. It's interesting.
Really?
Yeah. And I have to remind myself over and over again that she was not perfect. We idolize people we love after we love. It's interesting, even with the real experiences I've had of her not being the perfect mom.
Yeah. Well, because we are. None of us are. I know. Yeah, that is interesting.
It's really fascinating. But as you were speaking, I also thought about how you married an Italian man. And it's interesting how this maybe also somehow subconsciously came from her, that she also married a man who was from somewhere else. That's interesting.
Yeah, all of those influences. I know.
Yeah.
And I'm also back in England, which is where I was when I was like brought back to life, and I feel so at home here. And I've always thought about that. Like, I wonder if I love it here so much because it is like part of that, part of my story.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Will you help me to recap very quickly? I like to recap at the end of the conversation. So we learned from Mama Marilyn, who sadly passed away when Adina was only 6 months old, about the impermanence of life, which is a huge lesson to remind us to live with intention And I kept writing as you were talking. I wrote it all down. Intention, appreciation, and gratitude.
Yes.
We have to remind ourselves of that. The depth of feeling, and this big contrast that you experience from this huge love to this huge loss and grief, and to remind ourselves that this is normal, that feelings are on a spectrum, and as you said, they go in a flow. It ebbs and flows, and it's positive and negative, and this is just a fact of life. The huge bravery, I love it, how determined she was, and she obviously decided something and just went for it. And to love fiercely, and we just talked about how not only to love fiercely, but to show this love and express it, and never let it be taken for granted by anyone.
Yeah.
And something you wish she had taught you was, of course, to model what motherhood is like, what it is to be a mother. It's interesting how you said that if you're a motherless mother, you tend to have this idealized version of what a mother should be like and mothering should be like. And it must be hard to hold yourself up to this imagined ideal principle.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was very, very beautiful. I'm so glad
Thank you.
our joint friend Ambi connected us.
Yes, thanks, Ambi.
And thank you again. I will put a link to your website in episode notes so my listeners can find you. And I think I lost you. Adina froze.
Yes, I did.
Oh, you're here.
You froze. I'm back. You froze.
You're back. But I just wanted to wish your daughter quick recovery as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me in spite of this little
having me.
glitch.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Bye, Adina. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyoumama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.